You know that classic story, right? The American dream. Someone starts with nothing but a great idea and some grit and builds something amazing. But what if there's this invisible ceiling holding people down? Today, we're digging into the powerful, often hidden barriers that crush the smallest entrepreneurs in America before they even get a chance.
So, let's just ask the big question right up front. We all say we love small businesses, right? So why does it feel like the whole system is designed to make it almost impossible for the little guy to get a start? Well, we're about to find out.
The term for this problem that we're going to be using is the red tape ceiling. Just think of it like the main villain in our story. It's this massive, tangled web of rules, fees, and paperwork that isn't just an annoyance. It's a wall that can literally kill a dream before it takes its first breath.
All right, first up, we've got what's called the compliance chasm. This is where you really start to see how the cost of just playing by the rules is a totally different game depending on how big you are.
And this is where it gets really stark. Look at this comparison. For a giant corporation, a $5,000 filing fee, that's not even a rounding error, it's just noise in their budget. But for your local bakery, that exact same $5,000 could be a fifth of their entire yearly profit. That's not a hurdle, that's a death blow.
And get this, it's not even a one-time thing. This number shows how small businesses are constantly bleeding money. We're talking about an average of $12,000 per employee every single year just to keep up with regulations. Think about what that money could be used for. Higher wages, new equipment, expansion, anything but paperwork.
So you have to ask, why are the rules so complicated in the first place? Well, here's the dirty secret, something called regulatory capture. The idea is that huge corporations sometimes actually lobby for more complicated rules. Why? Because they can afford armies of lawyers to deal with it, while a tiny competitor can't. It's basically using bureaucracy as a weapon to keep competition out.
Okay, so this isn't just about business plans and filing fees. It gets really personal. This red tape hits everyday people who are just trying to be self-sufficient, especially when it comes to something as basic as growing and selling food.
You have got to see this because it perfectly shows how absurd things can get. A small local farmer wants to sell meat to their neighbors. Simple, right? Nope. Federal rules can force them into this insane logistical nightmare, trucking their animals hundreds of miles to one of the few approved processors, only to truck the finished product all the way back to sell it in their hometown. It's unbelievably inefficient.
And this right here, this quote just sums it all up. This gets us into what some are calling the cottage food wars. It sounds totally made up, but it's true. In many states, you could be breaking the law by selling a jar of homemade jam or pickles without having an industrial-grade kitchen. And it doesn't stop with pickles, believe me. We're talking about actual bans on collecting rainwater in some places, zoning laws that say you can't have a vegetable garden in your own front yard. You want to sell cupcakes from home? You might need a $20,000 commercial kitchen. And then you have occupational licenses, needing the government's permission just to braid hair or help someone move their couch. It's wild.
So you might be thinking, okay, that's rough for farmers and bakers, but what about the tech world, the world of innovation? Well, turns out the red tape ceiling casts a pretty long shadow there too, potentially choking off the next big idea before it can even boot up.
I mean, come on, we all know these stories, right? They're basically modern-day legends. The brilliant idea that starts in a humble garage and grows into something that changes the entire world. It's the core of the Silicon Valley myth.
Which leads to the big, kind of scary question, could it even happen today? With the way things are now, is the garage startup basically an endangered species?
Well, the argument is probably not. Think about it. Today's garage innovator could be shut down by zoning laws that say you can't run a business from home. They might need expensive commercial insurance from day one. And get this. Data privacy laws designed for giants like Google can be applied to a single coder working on an app. It's a minefield.
All right, so let's say you somehow navigate all that red tape. You still need money, right? Well, good luck with that. This is what's being called the bank desert effect. Heavy regulations have forced thousands of small community banks to close. You know, the kind of bank where the loan officer knew you by name. Without them, a local entrepreneur with a solid plan but no track record often has nowhere to turn for that first critical loan.
Okay, so after all that doom and gloom, you might be wondering if there's any hope. And there is. The conversation is shifting. People are starting to frame this not just as a policy problem, but as a fight for a fundamental right, the simple right to earn an honest living.
And this movement is really focused on three big ideas. First, creating regulatory sandboxes, basically a grace period for new businesses to get on their feet without being buried in paperwork. Second, a Bill of Rights for home-based businesses to push back on crazy zoning laws. And third, and this is a big one, totally reforming occupational licenses to get rid of pointless gatekeeping.
So what does that reform actually look like? Well, check out some of these jobs. We're talking about requiring hundreds of hours of cosmetology school for someone who only braids hair, needing a state license just to arrange flowers, or making someone get government permission to talk about history as a tour guide. The solution being proposed is just common sense. If there's no real public safety risk, get rid of the license.
This quote really just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It makes you wonder if, in our attempt to make everything perfectly safe and regulated, we've accidentally created a system that's just stagnant. A system that smothers the exact kind of creative energy that builds communities.
And that really leaves us with one final, pretty heavy question to think about. Does a one-size-fits-all system really make sense? Is it fair to apply the same kind of crushing regulations meant for a multinational giant to the neighborhood bakery, the kid coding in their garage, or the farmer trying to sell at the local market? What do you think?